China appears to be easing its often onerous COVID lockdowns and regulations. Citizens have been enduring leader Xi Jinping's zero COVID goal for nearly 3 years. He had maintained that policy in part to solidify his political power. Chinese have been heavily surveilled with apps determining where they can go and what they can do, stretching many people to their limits.
After being confined to their homes for 7 days straight, the desperation became too great to bear. In this harrowing video, Shanghai residents are heard screaming from windows during a snap lockdown in April. Going out for a walk or even to buy food, not an option. Since the start of the pandemic, the government in Beijing has enforced snap lockdowns and mass testing, with the message that the virus is too dangerous to act otherwise. That message was received. The fear of the virus has deep roots in China.
What if the virus has more mutations later that may have some effects on the human body?
But 3 years of bowing to the government's zero-COVID strategy have left people exhausted. And when a deadly fire in an apartment building was linked to anti-COVID measures, fear of the virus turned to fury. Within days, protesters took to the streets of cities across China, some of them openly calling on the government to resign. Unprecedented scenes in Xi Jinping's China, and they were followed by actual change for the people. As of this week, people in Beijing no longer need a negative test result to enter supermarkets and offices. And commuters in major cities are now using public transport without testing. The government has been keen to stress it's simply optimizing existing policies.
We have been adjusting and improving our COVID-19 protocols in light of a development of a situation.
In the capital and elsewhere, citizens have been enjoying their new freedoms, and some expressed hope that stringent lockdowns are a thing of the past. But with infection numbers at record highs and China officially still pursuing a zero-COVID strategy, that freedom could be temporary. The current challenge for China's leadership is to convey a complicated message, that it's listening to the grievances of the people, but has the authority to lock them down where and when they deem necessary.
Joining us is journalist Fabian Kretschmer in Beijing. Fabian, after more than 2 years of propaganda about COVID, about how zero COVID is absolutely necessary as a matter of nationalism, is it going to be possible for the government to pivot and just say, well, now COVID's not that bad and we all just have to live with it?
Well, it will cost a lot of credibility. I mean, the change in propaganda tone is really remarkable. Until very recently, the dangers of COVID were, in my opinion, highly exaggerated here in the reporting in China. Now what is happening is rather the opposite. The danger of COVID is even downplayed. I mean, now the party newspaper, they quote a lot of residents saying that they are not afraid of COVID and that it's not dangerous, etc. That's a complete change in tone. Another example, there was really a lot of reporting about the dangers of long COVID and how it is really widespread in the West. And now suddenly the state media says, okay, long COVID, that's scientifically not proven and we're not sure it even exists. So, of course, there are very, very clear contradictions and it will cost a lot of credibility of the state media. But I mean, during my time here in China, I've seen a lot of those remarkable changes in propaganda. And I think the biggest goal of the propaganda apparatus right now is to distract from the fact that, you know, Xi Jinping's core policy, the zero COVID policy, has basically failed. And so now I think that's the biggest goal. And there are not really good options in explaining it to the population why they're changing it. So I think they go for whatever they can.
Now, China, of course, is a big country with over 1 billion people, so it's no surprise there's variation in terms of how some of this is getting changed. But what is your sense of the national mood? Is it possible to sum up the national mood? Are people feeling confused? Do they trust the government less?
Well, I think the bigger picture, in my opinion, is that, yeah, actually there is a lot of opening up going on in many cities at the same time. Right now, there's easing of restrictions. I will give you the example from Beijing, because Beijing, as a capital and also as the center for political power, was always very strict when it came to implementing COVID rules. Now, here in the city, I know several cases where it's allowed to, when you're infected, you can cure your symptoms out at home. You can isolate at home. You don't need to be transferred to a quarantine center. That is really remarkable. Also, the citywide testing, the mandatory testing, was suspended. You don't need to show your, negative test result when you enter a supermarket anymore. I mean, those changes are really quite unbelievable. If you look back just 2 weeks ago, we wouldn't think this is possible. And in many other cities, it's the same. So, of course, this, opening up is not even across the whole nation, but there is a sense of, now things are happening and people do feel a little bit more free, but also they feel very uncertain because we will not know what the next week will bring.
And so I'm assuming that means that in terms of dissent, you're not hearing about any more protests or even anything critical online about the government now.
Well, online, yes, you do hear a lot of critical debate, but this is more, some people think the easing of restrictions doesn't go far enough. They want more, for example, they want more gates opened of residential compounds. They want more rules released, etc. Others fear that the opening up will go too far. I mean, those kind of debates you have, but those big anti-lockdown protests or even the political protests, to my awareness, are not ongoing right now. But I mean, the political protests were basically repressed by a heavy police presence and a lot of arrests and a campaign of intimidation. So I think that is the main reason for the political protests to have stopped, or at least they are suspended now.
Fabian Kretschmer, thank you so much.